What's up, y'all? What's up? Hi, I'm Jay. Marietta stole my thunder and made me cry a little bit, so I'm gonna need to collect myself. All right, I'm good. Um, Really quick, I look out, and the thing that I see that is so heartwarming is that I see my friends. I see a lot of my friends. I see some of my friends from day one, from day -1, honestly, when I was much smaller, not height-wise, just weight-wise. Um, I didn't know what enumeration was, and my first interaction with the Python community was Slack telling me something, which is supposed to be turned off, which is great. Um, it was saying, hey, your code isn't Pythonic. That was the first interaction that I had with the Python community. Now, it was Stack Overflow, so let's be real, it didn't really count. Um, the second interaction that I had with Python was, wow, that project looks so cool. Can you tell me more about it? And that was from three of my closest friends in the community, Melanie Arbor, Trey Hunter, and Carol Willing, as they sat with me, a brand new Python developer, trying to figure out what Anaconda was. Okay, that's gonna get annoying after a while, so we're gonna hit mute on that, and we'll unmute it when it's necessary. Um, Also, I have Do Not Disturb on, so apparently my company is doing something buck wild there. But this is going to be a story about community, more than anything, because we've all heard the quote, I came for the code, I stayed for the... All right, cool, we got it. Let me tell you a little bit about my community. My community is dope. Like, I have no other words than my community is so dope. My community is the only community where we can take selfies while getting pedicures and going to sketchy Peruvian restaurants where the food is amazing. It's where I've met most of my coworkers for the first time. It's where I've met people who only knew me on the internet as, that person that yells a lot. And it's the same community that I can see people for years and years and years, once a year, and feel like we haven't missed a step. And this is what my community looks like. And I thought about what would my community say about me? How would they define me? Well, the OGs that know me know web developer, automator. I love me some Flask. I love me some Fast API. I love me some Django. And I love automating myself out of a job, which is why I job hop so much. I'm kidding. That's not why. They also might see me as a husband and a father, someone who works too much and promises to work less, only to find himself working more sometimes. But hopefully for good reasons, and hopefully I can get better at that. And then they might see me as a developer advocate, that person that gets on stage that talks about a company, and I'm happy to announce I won't be talking about any companies in this keynote, so I feel like I earned it a little bit more. But when I thought about how do I want my community to think of me, there were some pieces that were missing. Now, I know there's often this idea of like, why has it got to be about race? Or like, why is black identity such a big deal? Why is your title of a staff developer advocate such a big deal? And what I want to tell you is that I know 2 staff developer advocates that are black, and I'm one of them. And that's not a singular thought. That's not a singular position. In fact, the Pew Research Center says that a significant majority, about 95% of black Americans say that being black is extremely or very important to how they identify themselves. So when I look on stage and I see amazing faces like Tanner, like Kojo, who I've seen on stage, I don't see just another Pythonista. I see a black developer on stage doing the thing that I hope that one day I would be able to do. And that's why it's so important when I see these beautiful moments, like some of these scenes from Durham, North Carolina at last year's DjangoCon, of black keynote presenters, black PSF representatives, People from all over the world, company representatives, getting on stage, getting in front of their booths, and doing the thing. It's not just another thing. It's not just that they showed up. It's they showed up and they showed out for who they were. And in that moment, I'm proud of every single one of them. And I'm happy to say that my community, my Python community, has a great track record of this where it hits in a lot of places. I'm happy to say that I'm not the first black keynote speaker. This is the first time in my tech career that I haven't been the first black something in a moment. Being the fifth of something is fantastic. I was super encouraged to see people that I've seen on bigger stages, South by Southwest. I've seen startup, profit startup founders, all of these things rock the stage before me. And it gave me confidence that, Jay, you got this. It gave me excitement to know that it wasn't just going to be me setting the example, setting the tone, or setting the tempo for every other black person that will ever be on this stage in the future. And I also saw that our community was eager to reach out. That they were eager to say, we want you here. We want you to be here. We want you to speak. We want you to get on stage. We're willing to get you all the way from Harare in Zim. I've been told not to say the full country because I say it wrong every time. But Zim, we want you here. We want you to represent who you are and what you bring to the community. And then I thought about it. How do people like me see the Python community? And this is where it got fun, because as Marietta mentioned, my first PyCon US was PyCon US 2022. We were coming out of a whole big mess of a thing. I was going to be meeting my team at Microsoft for the first time. I was supposed to start that day. I'm sure some people saw the tweets. Long story. We'll talk about it over drinks one time. But when I go to a new place, I like to play this little game. And it's like, how many black people do I see in the room? How many interactions do I have with someone that looks like me? And the goal is that I lose count at some point in time. Well, in 2012, or 2022, I counted 12. Amongst the expo hall, amongst the talks, 12. And this was tough. If 12 people stood up in this room, you probably couldn't make out their faces. Because if 12 people way back there and me sitting right here stood up, and that was the only community that I had, I would feel like I was the only person in the room. Out of 2,000 people, 12 is like 0.1%. So the thing that made it worse was as I was trying to figure out what was going on. Hey, what's up with this? Why, I don't understand the situation here. A tech influencer, a black tech influencer, Pythonista, author, mentor of mine, basically said, I'm not surprised. I've been there before. It's kind of a one-time thing you do because you've done it, and then when you realize that it's not really a place that's for you, you go to the black conferences, because at least then you can see yourself in the room, and you feel like, hey, we can be professionals, we can do these things. So I get angry, and a friend of mine calls this spite-driven development. I'm a fan. I decided to go and talk to all 12 of those individuals that I bumped into, and I said, hey, what brings you to PyCon US? Is this your first PyCon? Are you giving a talk? Have you spoken at other conferences? What conferences have you spoken at? And the answers that I got were very interesting. It was, I'm looking for a job, or my job paid for me to be here so that I could work the booth or that I could learn about this thing. And when I asked them about speaking, they were like, why in the world would I do that? To what effect would me getting on stage and talking about something that I'm interested in help any way in my career? And I was like, I don't understand this. This is my job. This is what I do. I love getting on stage. Like, I owe my career to having a conversation with Guido about podcasting of all things, because he was really interested in this, and, the rest is history, as they say. But what I ultimately got from this was that folks were on a mission. People had to have a reason to be here. And I thought about it. I hadn't seen any of those keynote speakers at PyCon since. And again, I may just be missing them. If I am, please tell me, because I want to know what rooms they're hanging out in so I can go hang out in those rooms. But I noticed that they came, they spoke, they left. And that's not a knock on them. It's just the perception of how things were. And if I could boil it down to a phrase that I think a lot of people here might understand, I would probably say that maybe the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. When you think about what it takes to come to PyCon US, you spend thousands of dollars. You take time away from your friends, time away from your family, time away from your responsibilities. And to what effect? Well, for everyone in here, I'm guessing I would say not everyone, but a lot of you in here were probably saying, well, no, that's when I get to go and see my friends. That's when I get to hang out with my friends. So if they don't have that same experience, there's no reason for them to attend. So then I thought to myself, how do we get more black people to experience the Python community, build those friendships, establish those relationships so they can be second, third, fourth, fifth time attendees? And what I've learned is that usually people are already doing the work. So I went back and I started thinking about who was doing that work. I started with Marlene Mangami, someone who had worked please don't clap yet. There's going to be a lot of pictures. It's going to get weird. Marlene has always been a friend of mine. We always butt heads, and that's exactly why we have the best conversations. But Marlene had done a lot of work to help get the DEI work group for the PSF off the ground and really start to push, starting Zimbo Pi with Ron, who is here today. And then I thought about my old work bestie, Don, who I would always have amazing conversations with, and we would have these career conversations and talk about how the community is it for us. It's home. It's our hood. We love it. And this is mostly just payback because she put my picture on a slide last year and about made me cry. So I thought about my good friend Abby, who is here today looking for tech books to send back to Ghana, because I don't know if you know this, sending physical atoms from one country to another country and then sending them through several other countries to get to their final destination is incredibly expensive, and sometimes the easiest way to do it is to bring an extra suitcase with you and fill it up full of books so that you can pass them out to students so that they can get their tech books to them. Because infrastructure doesn't always allow for reliable internet, and I would love to get to the thriller, the climax of how to make mocking work in my PyTests, and my internet cut out, and well, there it is. So I thought about all the work that they were doing, and it reminded me of this moment in time that every time I see it, I kind of laugh a little bit. And it's from the movie Black Panther, where King T'Challa looks at Nakia and says, "Why don't you stay here? Why don't you stay in our community? You can do so much to help our community if only you stayed." And her response was just simply, "I found my calling out there." So at that point, I got a little cantankerous, and I thought, what if I made a something that would serve to become the Wakanda for Black Python developers? That thing that would be the thing worth staying for, that people could come to. What if I made my calling out there the thing that people wanted in here, and we slowly just merged that together? And it took many different forms. At one point, it was a conference in, a black-owned industry in Atlanta so that we could work with HBCUs and do a lot of things. And ultimately, I had to think about this moment of personal interaction And we're going to play a short, it's a long video, but I think it's absolutely worth it. I'm going to share this to emphasize the importance of what a community here looks like. Oh, and then I muted it, so now they're going to yell at me.
Fighting me, then it be ready for death, they invited me. You will address me, king. Who am I being? Doing the scene, but really irrelevant means what? Nothing, ready to team up. With the Avengers and clean up. Anyone challenging, he's nuts. Touching vibranium knee cups. Hidden away, so what they got coming to pray, they will not see us. T'Challa, anguish and losing a father. Now that I'm king, they're pulling my collar. Telling me things that challenge my honor. Losing restraint with pieces and offering. Listen, Wakanda and sing. It's chanting the panther. Level will bring Killmonger. You are a threat no longer. Fighting the dark is making me stronger. One of a kind, king of the hill, but you're one in a kind. Binary rhymes, Captain America, really no better example. I am the African replica, killing my people, just to be better and do what is right, no matter the weather. All that matters is that we are together forever, fighting endeavors of terror. Throwing the king, a worthy successor. And in the ring, not taking any measures. Swiping the claws, leaving you sever. Panther, tank, but ladies of feather.
What you gonna do when the panther comes? Whenever else the job is done. King of his people, enemies run. Wakanda the brave, we are all as one. We fight for the day of the morning sun. We are not prey, we are on the hunt. Run.
King of the jungle, crumble. Anyone ready to rumble, juggle. Enemies ready to struggle, humble, but they are ready to crumble. Any disgruntled psychopaths, whether they're using biogas or microblast, they might go fast when they see the panther smash a psycho's ass. Don't mean to curse, I'm still learning words can lead to something worse. And you can't reverse what is said when they all disperse. Be a leader, you must set examples of a great achiever. Always on the chopping block, a cleaver waits the non-believers. I was the best, fighting for initiation was the test. And when they bested everyone, the herb unleashed what was suppressed. Coming out of Africa, but now it's time to say the word. Apply with every boy and girl is mine. I do it every time. We are of a higher cause, more than slashing panther balls. Time to take a pause and
So, you may have noticed the very historical Wakanda Forever. And the thing about it is a call of solidarity. It is not only a you got this, but it is a, hey, look, I did it. It's a moment to celebrate with each other. I wanted to recreate that in the Python community. I wanted to create a space where every time someone that looked like me did something, they could quickly just go and have someone in the back do the same thing. And no, we did that. That happened. But before I could do that, I had to think, how do I make the community safe, equitable, accessible? Again, if the juice is not worth the squeeze, it doesn't matter what I do because they're not going to come back. And when we talk about safety, we have things like a code of conduct. We have things like people you can go and talk to when things don't go right. But what do you do when you've traveled across the globe from a country that no one really even knows where it is on a map, and you get out of your cab and your card doesn't work, and you're by yourself in a country for the first time? And these concerns, safety, equity, these are things that Black people think about every day. Even me. Last year in Durham, North Carolina, I left my bag at the speaker's dinner. And to me, it's embarrassing. As a 34-year-old, grown man, 200, we're not going to say the rest, to walk 10 minutes, I had to ask my friend to walk with me because I didn't know the area. And I grew up an hour from where Ahmaud Arbery, a Black kid running in a hoodie, was gunned down for no reason. And I was sitting there, a Black man in a black hoodie, just wanting to get my bag. That's a level of uncomfortability that is incredibly challenging. And it makes you not want to go to these things. It makes you not want to do this. Aside from that, you have the mental anguish of every time there's one black leader that they get signed up to lead 15 other initiatives because they're the only black representation in the community. How do we protect against that? How do we build a community of black developers? Not just black developers, but black leaders, so that the existing ones don't have to constantly fight burnout. And how do we address those that are off in the distance, that have been victims of just how our government works, preventing us to provide aid, preventing us from providing resources? How do we work to solve those problems? How could we make our community more approachable? This was the answer that I got. We try. And this is a good answer. I'm glad that you're trying. But if I can lighten the mood a little bit, there's a problem that when you try with the wrong intentions or the wrong perceived intentions, that doesn't even have to be your reality, it can just be the perception. You get into a rap beef. Has anybody been following this? I mean, some banger tracks. If you ask me who I'm rooting for, Kendrick, yes. Okay. But in the last track that came out called Not Like Us, which is a banger, it really is, there's a question on Drake's character. And he says, why do you go to Atlanta? You go to Atlanta so that these popular figures here can give you credibility. And he said, that's not the behavior of a colleague or a companion. That's the behavior of a colonizer, of someone who wants to take your resources for their own well-being. And again, it doesn't matter what the reality is, because if that's the perception, that's all that matters. A rumor was started in the late 90s, early 2000s that Tommy Hilfiger made the statement that he doesn't make his clothes for black people. And the quote went something along the lines of, if I knew that they would wear it, I would have made this clothing line. Now, it's come out later that that's not what was actually said. But the reality is that I still, to this day, don't wear Tommy Hilfiger. I've been raised my entire life that we don't wear Tommy Hilfiger. And if you ask 10 black Americans whether or not they have Tommy Hilfiger in their collection, I'm pretty sure 10 out of 10 would probably say no. It doesn't matter what the effort is if the perception is not correct. Just like when we heard the terrible news earlier this year that Women Who Code was shutting down, the conversation that we had in black channels was, yes, this is bad. Yes, this is a horrible hit to diversity. But if I'm being honest, says the black woman in tech, Women Who Code wasn't an organization for me. I could hang out there, but where I'm from, Women Who Code was more like White Women Who Code. And I'm not here to attack anybody's efforts because I've seen you do the work. I trust that you have those intentions, the best of intentions at heart. I know that you're doing the thing, but that's not the perception to the rest of the world. Instead, we want something like Sprite, something that can be a medicine, it can be an antibacterial. Please don't put Sprite in your open wounds. That's really bad. Don't do it. I know some people that would, but don't. The thing that Sprite did to get acceptance in black culture was they didn't go after the most famous. They went after the people who understood the culture. And when they spoke with authenticity. They listened to the communities and they acted accordingly. So, I did the same thing. I listened to people who were in the community. I listened to people who had experience running nonprofits and helping start communities. I listened to people who had experience launching and running multiple conferences to understand, folks like Kojo Idrissa, who we all love here, and conferencechats.org, which is ran by my good friend John Bonifato, where we talk about conferences, not just Python conferences, but conferences of all types of languages. I think we even had like a wedding planner in there one time. It was pretty cool. And my good friend Latoya Boyne from Platform SH, who basically told me, what are you waiting for? Just do the thing. Be resourceful. One thing that we know, at least I learned growing up, is black folks going to be resourceful. We're going to figure out how to do this. And sometimes it might mean that we didn't call the venue and say, hey, we're going to bring 20 of us. But are they really going to turn you away if you show up? The answer is no, and we learned that when we brought a bunch of people to an ice cream parlor once. It was really fun. So we started working behind the scenes, trying to get as many black folks as we could to PyCon 2023. And I'm happy to say that we 3x'd our number of black people. Not only were we able to see each other in the room, but we got a damn room and saw each other in it and started hanging out. And it was absolutely amazing. It was this moment where we could all sit together and learn about our experiences as black developers, black Pythonistas in the space. We weren't here to talk about how we could increase diversity. We were just here to talk about what we were talking about day in and day out that no one else like us comprehended, because all of us were the only ones in our rooms. It was truly amazing.
No one on the corner had swagger like us, swagger like us, swagger like us. No one on the corner had swagger like us, swagger like us, swagger like us. No one on the corner had swagger like us, swagger like us, swagger like us. No one on the corner had swagger like us, swagger like us, swagger like us. No one on the corner had swagger like us.
That was the feeling that we had going out of that room. And that was why that day, 5 minutes after we got together in that room, 31 of us, as Carol Willing was giving her closing keynote and said the famous words that I will always remember for the rest of my life, because it's actually just good tech advice: start small and scale. We launched a Discord. There were 5 of us. I checked this morning. There are 427 of us now. We had no plan other than to be here for one another, other than to show up for each other. We would figure the rest out. But what we knew was that we were tired of being the only people in the room, and we were going to do everything in our power to make sure that it didn't happen anymore. So, like I said, we have about 425 members across North America, South America, Europe, and Africa. I'm still waiting on someone from Southeast Asia. PyCon APAC, come hit me up. Let's talk about it. Black Python Devs was one of these things that slowly developed over time. And we quickly learned that we couldn't do it on our own. We wanted to do more and more things. So once we started thinking about how do we do this, we're starting small, we're scaling, we're starting small, we're scaling. Hey, this conference needs $100. Well, Jay has $100, so hey, I'm going to give $100 to support this conference. How do we do that? Finally, we got a phone call from the GNOME Foundation who said, hey, we see you're starting something here. We'd like to help you scale with that. So I'm happy to announce that as of yesterday, we are officially a nonprofit powered by the GNOME Foundation. So this... And you might be wondering what they asked for, and the answer was nothing. They said, keep doing what you're doing. They said, we'll give you the support that you need, tell us what you need, and we'll figure it out. Now, they're new to this game, too. They've never done this before, but what they said was that we believe that what you're trying to do is important enough that we're going to support it. Let's talk about leadership. Our leadership model is called diversity by inclusion, which means that we work to make sure that the global leaders of Python developers are represented at the table. So what you see here are three different languages being spoken across 3 different countries with 50-50 gender parity. Am I right? Come on now. That's awesome. But this is only our officer team. We have the Black Python Leadership Council that's made up of leaders from around the world, from parts of Europe, from North and South America, and because we looked at how our community was growing, we decided that since most of our community came from Africa, most of our community leaders should also come from Africa. So on screen, I think you're looking at about 6 different countries being represented, from Cameroon to Zim to Ghana, Kenya, Namibia, Tanzania. I feel like I'm missing one. They'll yell at me later. Ethiopia, there we go. All right. Nigeria, there we go, there it was. And we know that, hey, we're a nonprofit now. I don't know if you've learned recently, or if anyone's ever tried this, but start a community, turn that community to a thing that can get you sued really quickly. There's currently a young woman in Atlanta that is offering grants to women founders, black women founders, grants of $50,000. Whoa, life-changing money, am I right? Okay, no, that's a year's salary, but for a startup, that's nothing. The federal government has shut down their ability to offer funds due to discrimination practices because apparently you can't give $50,000 to black women founders without people getting mad. So it was really important that we worked with people who had done this before to say, hey, we want to do this. How do we not get shut down immediately by people who just genuinely don't like us, to be blunt? And what we've learned so far in this is something that one of my co-founders, I will call him a co-founder, he doesn't like it, but I'm going to call him one anyway. He tells me all the time, your reach may extend beyond your grasp. That, hey, you're going further than you have the capacity to actually do. And I said, good. Because when we stretch beyond what we're capable of, that means that the Python community has an opportunity to show up and extend that reach even further. And we've also learned that the opposite is true. That when you work hard to change that perception, that you can rely on us to extend your reach into those communities to help start changing the perception around you. And we noticed that even today, that with the help of amazing benefactors, we were able to bring 4 of our Black Python Dev community leaders to their first PyCon US. This is a part of our Build Black Leadership Opportunity Fund. We have bigger plans for that in the future. Also, Black Python Devs is already around you. Our leadership community is made up of the same leaders that are in the PSF, the DSF, DEFNA, Django Not Space, PyLadies, Django Girls, AfroPython. They're the same people that you've already been working with and already interacting with. But again, we had that moment where King T'Challa said, why don't you stay here? And we understand that they have a calling that's out there, and hopefully that we can help with that calling as much as possible. The PSF and the DSF have already reached out to us as well. In fact, as they were planning this event, they reached out and we were able to provide them with a list of all the historically black colleges and universities and primarily black institutions around the Pittsburgh and North Carolina areas so that they could do local community outreach and work to bring more of the local community into our community. And with the little bit of funding that we have been able to make as we've been this little scrappy community, we've worked to already work as a community sponsor, but do it in a different way. You see, we have a booth, but the booth is kind of small, and that's intentional, because what we like to do is we like to take the money that we donate and convert it into tickets that we can give to first-time attendees that are Black Python Devs members. In fact, in the upcoming PyCon Nigeria, we're happy to announce that we're giving away 75 student tickets, 75 future Black Python developers that can join the community, and their first interaction with Python was not some jackass in Stack Overflow telling them that their code wasn't Pythonic. And our last tenet that we talk about is say it loud. Everything that we do out in the open. Everything we do loudly and we do proudly. We show up for each other, we celebrate, and we're not afraid to get up on stage and help our friends out when they need it. Like in this moment in DjangoCon US again, where you had leaders across the globe taking their lunchtime to help folks understand the situation happening with DjangoCon Africa and understand what we could do to be of assistance. Like moments like this where our vice chair Velda's laptop decided it just didn't like us anymore, and we worked frantically to just make things happen. Or at DjangoCon, where we did our Django Girls event, where we were able to help not just Black women developers, but Black women children developers have a wonderful first interaction with the Python community. We show up for each other. We show out for each other. It's kind of what we do. It's our thing. So now the important part. What can you do? I know that hopefully there are more than 30 of you that are like, hey, I want to join, and we'll talk about that later. Come see me at the booth. Actually, most of you already have. Thank you. But those that are like, hey, I'm not Black. Why am I still here listening to this? Well, there are a lot of things that you can do. Of course, you can donate. Not just money. The money is important. I'll get in trouble if I don't say that the money is important. All of our projects are open source. They're at github.com/blackpythondevs. If you have some spare time and you want to provide some mentorship to people who are taking their stab at being a project manager for the first time and helping build code of conducts and helping build policy and things like that, and you have that experience, come tell us, come get involved. We would love you to. Again, I talked about Abby, who is donating books. So if you're an author and you want to partner with us, we're launching our first Black Python Devs book club. Velda, is it next week? Next week. Okay. I'm not in charge of that, which is great. But also, again, if you want to donate, we have this idea. You've heard my story for the last 40 minutes. Our goal this year is to sponsor 7 conferences in local communities with Black Python developers in them. Our goal is $5,000. Now, a lot of folks are wondering, like, $5,000, that's it? That's just the start. We have more plans, much bigger and brighter plans. So please, smash through that goal. But the beauty of this is if everybody gave $2 in this room, we would hit that goal. Now, that being said, think about what I just said. If everybody in this room donated $2, you too could, we could send 7,500. I'm pretty sure PyCon Nigeria would not be happy if we sent 7,500 students to them. They would not be prepared for that. So let's not get too excited. But sometimes supporting a local conference in a Black area is as easy as saying, what do you need? Because the answer isn't tens of thousands. Sometimes the answer is tens or hundreds, and that is something that we can legitimately do. In fact, JetBrains has already stepped up, and they're providing as our first infrastructure sponsor. So for the first year, everything came out of my pocket. For the second year, everything is coming out of JetBrains' pocket, and I'm super excited about that because now I can buy flowers for my wife. Who's also here today, so I love you. The other thing that you can do is you can connect with us. You can easily reach out to us. We're on X. I know a lot of people don't like X, but guess what? The rest of the world doesn't have the same issues that you have, so we have to be there. Because if you all leave, well, then again, now you're just saying that you don't care about that community. And again, what you decide to do is what you decide to do, and I respect your reasons for doing that. Sometimes the perception makes things difficult, and I get that. We're also on Mastodon, and we have a LinkedIn group that is open to the public. Just search Black Python Devs. And the last thing that you can do is open doors, have conversations, make connections. In fact, you can listen to our stories. One of our members, Laz, is giving a talk later today at 3:30. I want to see that room packed out. We're taking over the PSF booth at 4 to give a leadership panel where we'll be talking with Black Python Devs community leaders about their communities, not about us. It's not about us, it's about them. And also, we started at PyCon. Our birthday will always be at PyCon. JetBrains has decided that they're going to throw us a birthday party. So you can come hang out with us on Sunday at our Black Python Devs birthday party. And I will say, if you are a Black Python developer and you haven't joined yet, you absolutely can join us at the booth. But also on Sunday, we're doing what is now our second annual Black Python Devs open space, where for just an hour, you're not here because your boss sent you here. You're not here because you're looking for a job. You're here because you're here with us. And again, we have the entire room where you can see yourself in it. So come talk to us at the Black Python Devs booth. We'd absolutely love to have a conversation with you. If you have questions about how you can get involved more, how you can assist us, what we're working on, I'd love to talk about all that stuff until I'm hoarse. But the last thing that I want to mention is we're not doing this just for us. I have some notes here from a good friend of mine who individually recognized all of these folks, and I'm sorry I don't have enough time to name them all. But these are folks who have never received a PSF fellowship, who have never gotten some type of distinguished community award. These are folks in Southeast Asia, and I'm going to read this directly because I want you to hear their words. Our culture is not as explicit as other cultures like the US, Australia, or other parts of Europe. Our value system doesn't emphasize raising your hand and taking credit for what you've done. So it hasn't been easy to source out members of our community who deserve recognition. It also means that when we do this, we explicitly differentiate work done by one person against another, which doesn't go well with our value system. So the interesting problem with this is that you have people who are doing the work without any recognition across Japan, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Taiwan. Some of them are in this room right now. I know I've seen them, and if I do see you, come say hi to me, because I want to tell you thank you. The work that you do is very inspiring. When we were starting what we were doing, we looked at what the APAC community does. I don't think you understand quite how difficult it is to get countries that used to be at war with each other for generations, generations of hatred, being set down to say, not here, not right now, we're going to talk about Python. We're going to do this. We're going to be a community for one another because it's that important that we show up for each other, regardless of our cultural backgrounds and our history. Because the thing that I've learned is, as I've been trying to make a more safer and equitable and accessible Python community, they've been doing that exact same work. And the beauty of it is all the work that we do helps to create a more safer, equitable, and accessible Python community. And it makes for a much more doper, I know that's not the correct English, it makes for a much more doper version of what I call my community. Thank you.